They were the bankers who built an empire, not with armies, but with art. The Medici family, a name that echoes through centuries, rose from humble beginnings to wield unimaginable power in Florence and beyond. They controlled popes, dukes, and entire nations, all while commissioning some of the most breathtaking masterpieces the world has ever seen. But their deepest secrets, their most fervent prayers, and their most audacious displays of wealth were often hidden away, enshrined within sacred walls. These are not just places of worship. They are monuments to ambition, whispers of divine favor, and glittering testaments to a family that rewrote history with brushstrokes and chisel marks. Step inside 6 of the most astonishing chapels, each a treasure trove of splendor and silent boasts, all thanks to the Medici. Number 1, the Chapel of the Princes, San Lorenzo, Florence. This is a chapel that screams power, not in hushed tones, but with a mighty roar of precious stone. It is a monument to the Grand Dukes of Tuscany, a vast octagonal hall designed as their eternal resting place. The Medici started building this chapel in the early 1600s, long after their golden age, but still holding on to immense wealth and a fierce determination to leave a lasting mark. Ferdinando I de' Medici was the driving force behind its initial conception, dreaming of a mausoleum that would awe all of Europe. His successors, including Cosimo II, Ferdinando II, and Cosimo III, continued the painstaking work, sometimes for centuries, until it became this shimmering, overwhelming display of luxury. The sheer scale of the Chapel of the Princes is difficult to grasp from pictures alone. It is enormous, its soaring dome seemingly touching the heavens. But what truly shocks is the surface of every wall. Forget simple marble or painted frescoes here. This chapel is entirely clad in what is known as pietra dura, literally hard stone. Imagine a mosaic, but instead of tiny painted tiles, it is crafted from meticulously cut and fitted pieces of the most exquisite, rare, and outrageously expensive stones from across the globe. The Medici family spared no expense. Look closely at the walls, and you will see the deep blue of lapis lazuli, a stone once reserved for royalty, shimmering like a night sky. There is the rich red and green of jasper, the subtle greens and browns of granite, and the regal purples of porphyry. Mother of pearl gleams with an iridescent glow. Alabaster, chalcedony, agate. The list of precious and semi-precious stones goes on, each one chosen for its color, its unique patterns, and its incredible rarity. The artistry involved in cutting and fitting these stones together perfectly, like a giant glittering puzzle, is almost incomprehensible. It was a craft that demanded immense skill and patience, often taking years to complete even small sections. The chapel's design features 6 monumental sarcophagi designed to house the remains of the Grand Dukes and their consorts. Though many of these grand tombs remain empty, a testament to the chapel's long and unfinished construction, they are flanked by colossal, imposing statues of the dukes themselves. These figures, carved from gleaming marble, stand guard over the earthly ambitions of the Medici line. The intention was clear: to glorify the family's rule and create an everlasting symbol of their dynastic power. Even the Medici coat of arms, the famous 6 red balls on a gold field, appears repeatedly throughout the chapel, not painted or carved in simple relief, but inlaid with incredible precision using contrasting precious stones. Each ball, each element, is a miniature work of pietra dura art in itself, announcing the family's presence and dominion everywhere you look. The chapel's dome, another vast expense, was originally intended to be covered in complex frescoes, a project that never fully materialized due to the astronomical costs and the sheer difficulty of such an undertaking. Instead, it was eventually painted with a celestial theme, a fitting canopy over this earthly manifestation of power. Walking through the Chapel of the Princes, one might feel overwhelmed by the sheer unbridled opulence. It feels less like a place of humble prayer, and more like a massive jewel-encrusted safe, designed to protect and proclaim the eternal status of the Medici. This chapel was not just built to honor the dead, it was built to inspire awe in the living. It was a statement of Medici authority, a final, magnificent flourish in their long, dramatic history. The long period of construction, stretching across several generations, speaks volumes about the Medici's unwavering, almost desperate, desire for immortality through their art and architecture. The cost of materials and labor was so immense that it strained the ducal treasury, a constant drain on the family's finances year after year. Every inch of wall, every intricately placed stone speaks of a family determined to secure their legacy, even as their influence in Europe slowly began to wane. This chapel stands as a testament to their enduring ambition, a glorious, glittering echo of their once unrivaled might. It was a project born of pride and continued through generations of steadfast devotion to the Medici name, proving that even in their declining years, their taste for grandeur and their willingness to invest in the most extraordinary artistic endeavors remained undiminished. Number 2, the Sistine Chapel, Vatican City. The Sistine Chapel is not just a chapel, it is a global icon, a place where art, power, and faith collide with astonishing force. When people think of the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo's ceiling and Last Judgment instantly come to mind. But the Medici family, through their powerful papal reigns, played a crucial role in shaping the chapel's appearance, adding layers of profound artistic brilliance to its already sacred space. The chapel was initially consecrated in 1483, named for Pope Sixtus IV, who commissioned the early frescoes along its walls, depicting scenes from the life of Moses and Christ. The famous ceiling was commissioned by Pope Julius II in 1508, not a Medici, but it was under later Medici Popes that the chapel saw further monumental additions and continued to be a stage for their spiritual and political authority. Pope Leo X, born Giovanni de' Medici, ascended to the papacy in 1513. Son of Lorenzo, the magnificent Leo X inherited his father's profound love for art and patronage. He recognized the Sistine Chapel's importance as the heart of the papacy and sought to enhance its grandeur even further. One of his most significant contributions was commissioning a series of 10 magnificent tapestries from the renowned artist Raphael. These tapestries were designed to hang along the lower walls of the chapel beneath the earlier frescoes, creating a rich, multi-layered visual experience. Raphael, a master of the High Renaissance, created designs known as cartoons that depicted dramatic scenes from the lives of St. Peter and St. Paul, the two pillars of the Christian Church. These included scenes like St. Peter's miraculous draught of fish, Christ's charge to Peter, the healing of the lame man, and the sacrifice at Lystra. These designs were then sent to the famous workshop of Peter van Elst in Brussels, where they were woven into immense tapestries using luxurious materials like wool, silk, and even threads of gold and silver. When hung, these tapestries would have transformed the lower part of the chapel into a dazzling display of color and texture. They were not mere wall hangings, they were immense, detailed artworks shimmering with light and rich in narrative. They were designed to be viewed up close, revealing the intricate weaving and the expressive figures. Leo X's choice of subject matter emphasized the divine authority and succession of the popes, tracing their lineage directly back to St. Peter. This was a clear message from a Medici Pope, establishing his authority and the sanctity of his office through the power of art. Later, another Medici, Pope Clement VII, born Giulio de' Medici, commissioned the monumental fresco of the Last Judgment from Michelangelo. Clement VII, who reigned from 1523 to 1534, was a complex figure, grappling with the tumultuous challenges of the Protestant Reformation and the sack of Rome. Despite the political and religious upheaval, he committed to this ambitious project, aiming to reaffirm the power and message of the Catholic Church. Michelangelo, already a legend for his work on the ceiling, was reluctant at first, but Clement VII was insistent. The Last Judgment covers the entire altar wall of the chapel, a vast expanse stretching over 60 feet high and 40 feet wide. It is an overwhelming vision of Christ as the judge, surrounded by a swirling multitude of saints, angels, and the resurrected. Below, the damned plunge into the fires of hell, while the saved ascend to glory. Michelangelo's depiction is raw, dramatic, and intensely emotional. The muscular figures, the powerful gestures, and the dramatic composition were unlike anything seen before. The nakedness of many figures caused considerable controversy, even leading to attempts to cover them with draperies in later years. Yet, it remains one of the most powerful artistic statements ever made. This fresco, commissioned by a Medici Pope, served as a stark reminder of divine retribution and salvation, a powerful visual sermon to all who gathered in the chapel, especially during sacred ceremonies. It was a statement of unwavering faith and authority in a time of great uncertainty. The Sistine Chapel, with the layers of art added by Medici Popes, served as the backdrop for some of the most important events in the Catholic Church, including papal elections and solemn ceremonies. The sheer scale of the commissions, the genius of the artists, and the luxury of the materials all speak to the immense power and wealth of the Medici family during their time on the papal throne. They did not just patronize art, they used it to project their spiritual and political might onto the grandest stage in the world. The chapel itself, through these additions, became a grand canvas for their ambition and their enduring legacy. Number 3. The new Sacristy San Lorenzo, Florence. The new sacristy in the Basilica of San Lorenzo is not just a chapel, it is a profound artistic statement, a silent dialogue between architecture and sculpture, created entirely by the singular genius of Michelangelo Buonarroti. This chapel was commissioned by the powerful Medici Popes Leo X and Clement VII, both driven by the desire to create a grand mausoleum for the younger, more recently deceased members of their family, Lorenzo, Duke of Urbino, and Giuliano, Duke of Nemours. Unlike the old sacristy, which was built decades earlier by Brunelleschi and decorated by Donatello, the new sacristy is a completely unified creation by one artist, Michelangelo. He was responsible for the entire design, from the architectural structure of the space to the monumental tombs and the allegorical figures that adorn them. The project began around 1520 and continued for over a decade, marked by political turmoil and Michelangelo's own struggles with the Medici. The chapel is an oblong space built in a traditional Renaissance style, but with a distinct Michelangelo twist. He used the classical elements of Pietra, Serena, Greystone, and white stucco, creating a stark contrast that highlights the architectural details. However, Michelangelo broke many of the established rules of classical architecture, creating a sense of tension and dynamism. He designed unusual blind windows, recessed niches, and complex arrangements of pilasters and cornices. The walls seemed to breathe, the elements pushing and pulling against each other, creating an environment that feels both grand and subtly unsettling. It is a space designed for deep contemplation, a meditation on life, death, and time. At the heart of the new sacristy are the two monumental Medici tombs. On one side stands the tomb of Giuliano de' Medici, Duke of Nemours, son of Lorenzo the Magnificent. Giuliano is depicted as an idealized Roman general, his figure in a posture of active thought, often referred to as the act of life. Beneath his seated figure are two reclining allegorical statues, Night and Day. Night is one of Michelangelo's most famous creations. The figure is a powerful, muscular female shown asleep, her face obscured, her body heavy with slumber. She holds symbols like an owl and a poppy wreath. This figure conveys a sense of profound melancholy and weary resignation. Her Day is a male figure, also powerful and muscular, but his face is intentionally left unfinished, as if emerging from stone, full of unexpressed emotion. His body twists in a strained posture, conveying the effort of awakening. On the opposite wall is the tomb of Lorenzo de' Medici, Duke of Urbino, grandson of Lorenzo the Magnificent. Lorenzo is depicted in a contemplative pose, often called the contemplative life, his face shadowed by a helmet, lost in thought. Beneath his figure are the allegorical statues of Dawn and Dusk. Dawn is another powerful female figure, awakening with a sense of anguish, twisting her body and averting her gaze. Her posture suggests the pain of beginning a new day. Dusk is a male figure reclining with a sense of exhaustion and resignation, his body heavy and his face partly obscured, symbolizing the close of the day. The raw power and emotional depth of these allegorical figures are central to the new sacristy's impact. They represent the passage of time, the fleeting nature of life, and the heavy burden of existence. Michelangelo intentionally left some of the figures and architectural elements unfinished, revealing his process and emphasizing the raw material, almost as if the figures are still struggling to emerge from the marble. Above the altar, Michelangelo placed a beautiful sculptural group of the Madonna and Child, known as the Medici Madonna. On either side of the Madonna are figures of St. Cosmas and St. Damian, the patron saints of the Medici family, sculpted by Michelangelo's assistants, but based on his designs. The Madonna and Child, though more serene than the allegories, still possess Michelangelo's characteristic power and sensitivity. The new sacristy was a testament to the Medici's renewed power after their return to Florence, following various exiles and political upheavals. It was a space designed to solidify their lineage and portray them not just as rulers, but as figures of classical grandeur and timeless significance. Michelangelo's genius transformed stone into a powerful narrative of human experience, a profound and complex work that stands as one of the pinnacles of Renaissance art. The atmosphere within the chapel is one of solemnity, a silent witness to the passage of time and the weight of human destiny, all under the patronage of the powerful Medici family. Number 4. The Chapel of the Magi, Palazzo Medici Riccardi, Florence. Hidden within the Grand Palazzo Medici Riccardi, the family's private residence, lies a jewel box of a chapel that transports you directly into the heart of 15th century Florentine splendor. This is the Chapel of the Magi, a small but incredibly rich space entirely covered in vibrant frescoes by Benozzo Gozzoli. Commissioned by Piero de' Medici, son of Cosimo the Elder, and completed around 1459, this chapel served a dual purpose, a private place for the family's devotion, and a magnificent display of their wealth, political connections, and refined taste. The star of the chapel is the fresco cycle, Procession of the Magi, which covers 3 of the chapel's walls. This is not just a religious scene, it is a breathtaking panorama of Renaissance life, teeming with hundreds of figures, horses, exotic animals, and lush landscapes. The story of the Magi journeying to Bethlehem was a popular theme in Florence, particularly because the Feast of the Magi was celebrated with elaborate processions in the city, often involving members of the Medici family and their allies. Gozzoli's fresco captures this spirit, blending sacred narrative with contemporary Florentine reality. As you step into the chapel, you are surrounded by a continuous procession, winding through rolling Tuscan hills, dotted with castles and cypress trees, before transitioning into more fanciful, exotic landscapes. The vibrant colors are still stunning today, painted with an incredible eye for detail. Every figure is distinct, every costume lavish. But the most intriguing aspect of the fresco is not just its beauty, it is its incredible array of portraits. Benozzo Gozzoli cleverly incorporated numerous members of the Medici family and their powerful allies into the procession itself. Look closely, and you can identify young Lorenzo de' Medici, later known as Lorenzo the Magnificent, as one of the youngest kings, riding a magnificent white horse. His grandfather Cosimo the Elder, who is the true patriarch of the family and the power behind the throne, is also said to appear in the procession, perhaps as one of the older, dignified figures. Piero de' Medici, the chapel's patron, is also prominently featured, a proud display of his patronage. Beyond the immediate Medici family, the fresco is filled with portraits of other important figures of the time, powerful bankers, scholars, artists, and even foreign dignitaries who had visited Florence. Each face is rendered with remarkable individuality, making the fresco a fascinating historical record of the Florentine elite. The sheer number of recognizable faces turns the sacred procession into a grand social gathering, a testament to the Medici's extensive network of influence. The costumes are a feast for the eyes. The figures are dressed in the finest silks, brocades, and velvets, adorned with jewels, elaborate hats, and intricate patterns. The horses are equally magnificent, with decorative bridles and saddles, adding to the sense of pomp and ceremony. Exotic animals like camels and cheetahs also appear, adding a touch of the faraway lands from which the Magi would have traveled, and perhaps reflecting the Medici's own interests in rare goods and global trade. The small, intimate size of the chapel creates an immersive experience. You feel as if you are standing right in the middle of this grand procession, caught up in the vibrant, moving spectacle. It is a powerful example of how the Medici used art not just for religious devotion, but as a strategic tool for self-promotion and to solidify their social and political standing. By associating themselves with the wise kings in their journey to Christ, they subtly suggested their own divine favor and legitimacy. The altarpiece for the chapel, originally Filippo Lippi's Adoration of the Child, now in Berlin, with a copy in place, further emphasized the chapel's sacred purpose. However, it is the surrounding frescoes that truly dominate the space, inviting viewers to marvel at the Medici's world. The Chapel of the Magi is a stunning illustration of the Medici's blend of piety and pragmatism, a testament to their ability to weave their own narrative into the very fabric of religious art, leaving behind a glittering portrait of their era. Number 5. The Old Sacristy, San Lorenzo, Florence. Step back in time to the very dawn of the Renaissance, and you will find the old sacristy of San Lorenzo, a chapel that stands as a groundbreaking statement of the Medici family's rising power and their visionary patronage. Commissioned by Giovanni de' Medici, the patriarch who laid the financial foundation for the family's future greatness, and later continued by his son Cosimo the Elder, the sacristy became the first major Medici mausoleum. It was a bold declaration of their lineage and their commitment to shaping Florence's artistic and intellectual landscape. The architect chosen for this revolutionary project was Filippo Brunelleschi, a genius who rediscovered the principles of classical Roman architecture. His design for the old sacristy, begun in the early 1420s, is a masterpiece of harmony, proportion, and clarity. Imagine a perfectly balanced cube, topped by a graceful dome that seems to float effortlessly above. Brunelleschi's signature style is everywhere, the elegant simplicity of white stucco walls contrasting with the precise structural lines of dark gray Pietra Serena stone. This interplay of light and shadow, plainness and detail creates an atmosphere of intellectual rigor and serene beauty. Brunelleschi's dome is particularly noteworthy. It is not a massive, heavy structure, but a light, airy dome with 12 ribs radiating from a central oculus. This innovative design allowed light to flood the space, symbolizing divine illumination. The circular windows, known as oculus, positioned strategically, further enhance this sense of openness and light. The chapel feels both grand and intimately human-scaled, inviting contemplation. While Brunelleschi provided the architectural shell, the decorative richness came from another giant of the early Renaissance, Donatello. Commissioned by Cosimo the Elder, Donatello's contributions are deeply integrated into the architectural space, creating a unified artistic experience. His most prominent works here are the two sets of bronze doors. On one side, the Doors of Apostles depict figures of the 12 apostles in dynamic, expressive relief. On the other, the Doors of Martyrs show various saints suffering their fates with remarkable emotional intensity. These doors are not merely functional, they are powerful sculptural narratives demonstrating Donatello's mastery of perspective and human emotion. Above the doors, Donatello crafted 8 large terracotta roundels or circular reliefs. 4 of these depict the evangelists, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, each shown with a vivid, expressive face, deep in thought or action. The other 4 feature scenes from the life of St. John the Evangelist. These terracotta works are remarkable for their naturalism and the way they seem to pop out from the wall, adding a vibrant, earthy texture to the elegant space. Donatello also created The striking bronze busts of St. Lawrence and St. Stephen, patron saints often associated with the Medici family or the church itself, placed within the chapel. His sculptural work here, combining classical forms with intense realism, perfectly complemented Brunelleschi's architecture, creating a dialogue between the ideal and the expressive. At the heart of the old sacristy, beneath the central dome, lies the sarcophagus of Giovanni de' Medici and his wife Piccarda. This placement was deliberate, asserting the Medici family's central role within the sacred space and within the city itself. Later, the porphyry and bronze sarcophagus of Piero and Giovanni de' Medici, sons of Cosimo the Elder, was also placed here, further cementing the sacristy's role as the Medici family mausoleum. The old sacristy was more than just a place of burial, it was a powerful statement about the Medici's identity. By commissioning such innovative and beautiful art from the leading artists of their time, they established themselves not just as wealthy merchants, but as enlightened patrons of culture, aligning themselves with classical ideals and forward-thinking artistry. It was a sophisticated use of art to legitimize their growing power and to visually etch their family name into the very foundations of Florence. The chapel's clarity, balance, and quiet grandeur speak volumes about the early Medici's strategic vision and their enduring impact on the course of art history. Number 6. The Chapel of the Annunciation, San Marco Museum, Florence. Hidden within the tranquil confines of the San Marco Museum in Florence, a former Dominican convent, lies a series of simple yet profound spaces that reveal the spiritual heart of the early Medici patronage. One of the most captivating of these is the Chapel of the Annunciation, though the entire convent, particularly the friars' cells, holds a deep connection to Cosimo de' Medici the Elder and the sublime art of Fra Angelico. Cosimo de' Medici, the true founder of the family's political dynasty, was a man of immense wealth and power, but also of deep personal piety. He funded the complete renovation and expansion of the San Marco convent in the mid-15th century, transforming it into a hub of Renaissance spirituality, learning, and artistic endeavor. He saw the convent as a place for serious contemplation and theological study, and he ensured it was decorated in a manner conducive to such pursuits. The most famous fresco in the convent, and arguably the most iconic work by Fra Angelico, is the Annunciation, painted at the top of the stairs leading to the friars' cells on the upper floor. This fresco depicts the angel Gabriel delivering his divine message to the Virgin Mary in a simple, arcaded setting. The scene is bathed in a serene, otherworldly light. Fra Angelico's figures are graceful and humble, conveying a sense of quiet devotion and purity. The simplicity of the composition, the soft colors, and the focus on the spiritual message were all deliberately chosen to inspire meditation and prayer among the monks who passed by it daily. Cosimo's patronage here was not about grand display, but about fostering genuine spiritual connection. Beyond this famous fresco, the upper floor of San Marco is lined with numerous small cells, each once inhabited by a Dominican friar, and almost every one was decorated by Fra Angelico or his workshop with a single fresco. These frescoes, often depicting scenes from the life of Christ, were designed to aid the individual friar in his personal prayers and contemplation. They are intimate, direct, and stripped of unnecessary detail, focusing instead on the spiritual narrative. Cosimo de' Medici himself, despite his vast palace and worldly responsibilities, maintained a private cell within the convent. Records suggest he had a cell on the upper floor, possibly cell 38 or 39, which was decorated by Fra Angelico, just like the friars' cells. The specific fresco in Cosimo's cell is often debated, but it was designed for his personal spiritual retreat. Historians point to the Adoration of the Magi as a strong candidate for his personal cell, a theme that would resonate with the Medici family's strong association with the Feast of the Magi. Even if the exact fresco is debated, the fact that Cosimo, the wealthiest man in Florence, had a simple, humble cell, like the monks, speaks volumes about his desire for spiritual humility and retreat from the pressures of his worldly power. Fra Angelico's style, characterized by its luminous colors, graceful figures, and profound spiritual depth, was perfectly suited to this environment. He used light to create a sense of the divine, and his figures radiate a quiet intensity that draws the viewer into the sacred narrative. The frescoes in San Marco are not just beautiful artworks, they are spiritual tools designed to guide the viewer toward a deeper understanding of faith. Cosimo's patronage of San Marco was immense. He not only funded the architectural reconstruction by Michelangelo, but also directly commissioned Fra Angelico for these extensive fresco cycles. This investment reflects Cosimo's multifaceted personality, a shrewd banker and politician, but also a deeply religious man who sought spiritual solace and a lasting legacy through his support of the church. The San Marco convent, with its serene cells and their profound frescoes, stands as a testament to Cosimo de' Medici's personal piety and his strategic use of art to elevate not only his family's image, but also the spiritual life of Florence. The unassuming nature of these cells, despite the genius of their artist, makes them a powerful symbol of the Medici's quiet influence, a blend of power and profound personal faith.